Hey guys, welcome to this time's episode of the Dirt Mountain Board podcast. Unfortunately, you guys have just got to listen to my dulcet tones today, and our esteemed guest here, Mr. Josh Knepper. Slogs is not with us today, but we're going to rise up and beyond anyway, for hopefully an absolute little history lesson, combined with some modern input into the Dirty 30 that's coming up in the next week or so now. So yeah, welcome to the chat, Josh Knepper. Um,
Yeah, thanks,
Josh,
man. Great to be here.
um, if you're from the original generation of mountain boarders, certainly in the UK, and remember the likes of Down and the Down and Dirty videos, Mountain Board Video Magazine, and some of the older delights, you will surely know this chap from core tours, Huntington Beach demos. Um, it, I cannot. It has to be addressed, and I'm going to get this out of the way early, Josh. The one thing that has always stuck with me is the scab eating. A true inspiration of a man who has had many different things in his mouth over the years, not all of them good. uh,
Yep,
yeah, that
yeah.
one
The
thing is.
Austin Powers reenactment. I think that was at Kraka Ridge, not during the race afterwards, because I had lived at that resort where the 2000 championship course was. I lived there, um, and so we were filming something back at that location. I'm pretty sure that's where it was. And I had a massive hipper, and it was swollen, but it also had, sliced a fairly large chunk of skin off of my hip, which had scabbed over. But then, in the process of continuing to ride through it, the heat and moisture and friction had loosened the skin. It wasn't even quite a scab. It was still the skin,
Yeah.
and it had loosened to where I could peel, a silver dollar sized piece of skin off. And I put it on my tongue like a gold member from Austin Powers, where the Dutch guy was eating his scabs and told not to eat them. Yeah, those days were filled with a lot of crazy antics. Uh, at some point that had to become my and we can get into this a little later, but those types of things in those videos. I don't know if you're familiar with Simon Woodstock, the pro skater. He rode for Vans. He had like the clown shoes. He
Uh-huh.
always wore different costumes and wigs and things in his skate videos. I went to school briefly with Simon Woodstock. He's a buddy of mine. Um, and I had in my mind, and I never really said this out loud to anybody, but in my mind, I was sort of slowly becoming like the Simon Woodstock of mountain boarding, like unofficially. So I was always wearing costumes and wigs and doing other things that weren't directly mountain board related, but were kind of becoming the thing that I would do, because I knew in the long run, physically, I wasn't going to be able to continue to keep up with the sport, but
Yeah.
I wanted to be around as long as possible. And I figured that those types of things might help my career, last a little longer.
Oh, 100%. Stay, trying to, we all try to stay relevant in our own ways.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Because even then, I I graduated high school in 90. Excuse me. Let me swallow some coffee here, clear my throat. I had graduated high school in 1996, and then I was already on a local snowboard team, like a sponsored team, and that turned into riding for Santa Cruz snowboards in the 90s on their parks team, building snowboard parks at the local resorts and stuff like that, and riding, with guys like Josh Vert. And I was at that point already pushing myself physically to be the best snowboarder that I could be. But I was getting injured like it constantly. And I'll send you some photos later. Um, but I was in and out of the hospital like every month, because I was just pushing myself to, Jim Rippey had built a gap at one of our resorts, and I was the only one there besides him that could clear it.
Right.
And was, going for double backflips when people weren't doing those in big air competitions and stuff, but over rotating and landing on my face from like, 40 feet in the air and breaking my nose and knocking myself out and waking up in an ambulance on the way down the hill. That was happening a lot. I was constantly getting injured and, was
Your
breaking
medical bills
everything.
must have been crazy.
Yeah, the medical bills on the state side for snowboarding was pretty insane for my parents. Um, but yeah, so getting into mountain boarding in the late 90s, 1999 was my first year on a mountain board. My dad ran a summer camp in Southern California, and one of the things that they offered at the camp for, like summertime activities was mountain boarding in that first summer. Patrick McConnell had gotten in contact with the camp through one of the trade shows, and he came to the camp where my family and I was living, and he brought a fleet of boards and showed us the whole rundown on how to use them and all this stuff, and that's where I met him for the first time. And so I had a razor, a Gen 1 razor
Nice.
that belonged to the camp, but I had kind of set aside as, the one that I was going to dial in, because I was helping out with the summertime programming. And so I became the one who's like, okay, well, if we're going to offer mountain boarding at this camp, you're going to be the one that runs that and leads that. So I spent that whole summer of 99 riding a board every single day, just through the mountains and building like little jumps and building little ramps. And we would jump, like the garbage truck that was at the camp, and find little cliff drops and these long single track runs. And so I was riding nonstop, dialing in that razor. And then that following summer, through watching, getting my version of what would have been down and dirty for other people, getting all of the mountain board videos that I could get my hands on, and finding out that there was going to be a border cross world championship, and it was going to be 10 minutes up the road from where I lived at Cracker Ridge. And so I was like, oh, well, that sounds fun, because I did border cross and snowboarding. So
Yeah.
I had spent years doing border cross. I was like, well, border cross and this would be fun. So I got put in touch with, um, the guys who were building the actual course, which was Ben Schroeder, who was a pro skater. He was, one of the original, Big Ben was his name. And I knew of him. I hadn't met him, but we had a ton of mutual friends, um, that I had ridden with, like, Lance Mountain, was one of the local guys, old school pro skater, that I had ridden with a bunch of times before. Anyway, so I met up with Ben, and we started skating in town together and talking about, the course that he was going to be building at Karaka. So because he had built some pretty famous, Vans skate parks in Southern California, and so he was brought up with a big tractor to basically design the course at Cracker Ridge. So because of that, I also got put onto the local team called ACR, the Angeles Crest Resorts team, sponsored by Flesh Gear. And on my team was the owner of the resort's son, Ben Schroeder, a Coney Kama, and me.
Nice.
That's the first time I met a Coney Kama. I met him because he was now my teammate. and he was riding a three-wheeler, right?
Right.
Uh, and then Ben was on a blade. I was on a razor. Um, and we all had matching yellow, black, and white flesh gear, like motocross racing stuff
Yeah, yeah.
that had ACR on it. And because I was like local to the mountain, because I lived near Kraka, it just happened to be where the race was. I was offered to be put on to that local team because I was up there riding after he had built the course and had been riding in that area and pushing mountain boarding like locally for a year at that point. So when I get to that event, that's the first time I'm seeing everyone that's from the videos that I've been watching. So, Leon and Austin Robbins are there, Dave Sansoni, Van DeWitt, like all like Jason Lee, everybody that I had been watching in the other videos I had access to were all there. And they had their MBS tent set up and I'm just off to the side. I don't have a tent out of anything. One of my buddies, Phil Jennings, was with me, and he had gotten really good at swapping tires out for me and swapping tubes and egg shocks and all that. So I had him there. He was like my support, but I was basically in the amateur division for Boracross. So I do that race and I take first place in Boracross. My first race ever, like official race, first competition, meeting all these guys, whatever, and did well. So at the end of that whole event, Jason came up to me and my family, Jason Lee, and was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take you guys out for pizza at this place down the road." It's like, "I want to talk with you guys about some things." So Jason takes me and my family out for pizza, and is like, "So, do you want to join the team? You want to go on the road? Do you want to do some like more of this mountboarding thing?" And I'm just like, yeah."
Nice.
So in 2000, um, after that offer, basically started going on the road like full time for mountain boarding in some way, shape, or form until 2010, when I had kind of like officially retired from all the touring and action sports stuff. So
You done well
that
to
that
get a full decade in. You done well.
yeah. I mean, a lot of that was just my body breaking down, the physicality of just getting injured all the time. Um, but yeah, that was kind of like the beginning of the mountain board side for me. And in that decade is, yeah, all of the touring for just like MBS in general, like living in the MBS van, to touring around with the trailer and all the ramps and doing demos like across the country,
Hmm.
going to like all the different stores that carried mountain boards, and I'd show up and make sure that their POP, their point of purchase, stand was displayed correctly and built right, that they had the boards built right in the stores, that the people who worked at the shops knew how to work on the boards
Hmm.
and knew what it felt like to stand on them and to roll around on them to make it easier for them to sell them. Do grand openings of stores, so sometimes other riders would come out and we do demos and we're cutting the ribbon at the store. uh I would do that, just driving back and forth across the country, and in between all those stops would be, oh, now we're stopping off at Kansas because PT's doing like chaos in Kansas, and I meet up with the rest of the team and we do something, and then they all leave, and then I get back on the road, and one summer I drove like 56,000 miles on my own in the MBS van, just driving back and forth between, California, New York, and everywhere in between, doing demos, setting up shops, doing like radio interviews where they'd
Yeah.
come out, like morning radio shows talking about mountain boarding. I just was living, eating, and breathing mountain boarding like all summer long, driving around the country. And then those turned into the actual full like team tours where we'd have the bigger truck towing the roll-in ramp, and we would drive around and do, demos in between getting to bigger events, like in Pennsylvania in Canton, going to Curtis Kelly's ranch and racing there. But in between there, we'd have other things going on, because that was like in 2002, we were doing like the Area 2 tour with Moby. So we were
Yeah.
doing demos on that tour, driving around, but then that was also mixed in with, oh well, we're near this location and there's an actual competition going on, so we're going to hit this competition and then we're going to continue the tour. So there's a crossover all the time going on as well. And then big trade shows in like Vegas where you're set up for like the week on a big demo ramp and you're just doing demos nonstop, trying, pushing and pushing the skill of your technical ability with each demo until you got onto the next one, and then that would translate into showing up at the next event,
Yeah.
which had big air or something, and you're like, well, I've been riding nonstop on these ramps and now I'm at an event where it counts.
Did
But did
you?
I just get wrecked at the last demo? Right? You're showing up to an event and you're like, dude, I just dislocated my shoulder for the fourth time 2 demos ago, practicing something, and now we're at an event where you either got to do big air or border cross, and you're like, dude, I'm wrecked. And just so I spent a lot of time on the microphone as well, which turned into the school tour where we'd go around in like 2003 and 4, taking the same demo ramp to schools, doing the drug awareness campaigns for schools,
Yeah.
all over the West Coast, which was pretty cool. But yeah, so it was if I wasn't on some sort of tour in that time, then I was probably doing like my other life job stuff, which is working in the film industry. But until 2010, because my wife and I moved to Canada in 2007, and I got my permanent residency in 2010, which meant I was legally allowed to work in Canada finally. So that's why that kind of cutoff for the touring happened. Because for the first 3 years of living in Canada, I had to leave Canada to go back to California to work. And that work was usually either on a film set somewhere, or I was doing some sort of a tour for MBS,
Yeah.
right? And then when I was legally allowed to work in Canada in 2010, my first job was working for the opening ceremonies of the Olympics here, um, doing film stuff. And then that's when I was like, all right. In fact, I was in the middle of a tour. I was doing like the county fairs in Washington, doing demos at the fair. And halfway through that, Justin Dersham flew up and took over my spot as announcing for it. And then I flew home, and that was it. That was technically my last official mountain boarding thing that I
Yeah.
had done, was handing over the reins to Dersh at that time. And then soon after Leon got married, I was at his wedding with Akoni, and then they were all talking about wanting to go to Serbia in 2019 for the World Championships.
Hmm.
And so they talked me into coming out of retirement and going there to race. And so I did. So I went to Serbia for a week. And that's the first time that I had stood on a board, raced on a board, done anything. In fact, my board, when I showed up, it had the exact same setup, same wheels, same rubber, same egg shock, same everything. I hadn't touched a bit of it. I had the exact same setup as I did from, I think, the last race I had done in Snowmass in 2007 or 8.
Yeah.
So it had like a 10-year setup on it. where it had just been hanging in the garage, and I took that to Serbia and I raced with that.
Oh my days. All I can see in my mind's eye are these egg shocks just like turn into powder inside the springs, and then
Yeah,
halfway down
that's
your
a
circuit,
fast
you can be
course,
like,
man. I actually got hurt and couldn't finish. I didn't get hurt racing. We were at the top and we got a call on the radio that someone had crashed at the bottom really bad. And so I started running down the course to the bottom where we were all stationed. It was kind of like at the quarterway, it starts up
mhm,
here. There's like a bridge and a tunnel turn, and then it bombs down. I go running down and like next to the course. And I didn't know, but that there was these giant holes just everywhere in that mountain. And as I was running down, my leg went into one, like almost to my knee, and then I went forward and basically hyperextended my knee, kind of rolled out of it and ran the rest of the way down to the bottom of the hill. And when I got there, there wasn't anyone there. So I don't know who called in. And I'm laying there with a massive swollen knee.
yeah,
Everyone else gets down to the bottom, and the Met guys, and they're like, where's the guy that called in? Because we were all running down there. And I was like, I don't see anybody, but now I'm the guy.
yeah.
So they had to bandage me up and haul me back up to the top. So they iced it for a bit, and I overwrapped it just to try to give some support, and I tried to do my next heat. And as soon as I dropped into the first berm, my whole leg just gave out, and that was it. I'm like, I can't stand up on the board,
Yeah.
and so I was out. So I only got two full runs in as I was advancing, and then my third heat, I couldn't even stand up. So that was it. I was done. I'd flown all the way out to Serbia, and I got hurt running down the mountain. So basically, they just put a microphone in my hand, and I popped some help, and just sat there in a chair announcing with my leg getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
But Serbia was a fun trip. Yeah,
Right. But it's again, that's one place that I missed out. I was kind of on my hiatus as such, um, or my sabbatical, some might say, from mountain
yeah.
boarding during that period. Um, but yeah,
Well, I was
gutted
used
that.
to having to operate under being hurt, but um that it was I had my the one thing about me, and actually my knee healed up fine. It's the only thing left on me that are still like I have knees of steel. The which is crazy because I used to have to not have to. I mean, I did. It's just what I wanted to do. Um, is I would guinea pig the landings for so many of our setups.
Mhm.
So we would set up the rolling towers, or even when we were building dirt jumps or any kind of jump, I would hit those jumps at full speed and just launch into the air, just straight air it, and then land to nothing. We wouldn't have a landing ramp yet. And then that's where they would know to either build or put the landing ramp.
Yeah,
So I was landing to flat at speed and height over and over and over and over and over again for years. And my knees had been fine.
yeah,
Um, but that was just part of like trying to figure out where the safest, widest gap for the landing ramp would be,
mhm.
um, for the bigger ones back before we had the landing ramps built into the truck that would fold down, and it was like a set distance.
Yeah,
Whenever we were building something new and we'd want to know where the landing ramp went for the first time because it was an arbitrary height, rolling ramp. It's like, well, we don't know how much speed is going to come off this thing or how far you could actually go. So before we truck in all the dirt,
yeah,
we'd want to know where that would go. Which for a lot of the old demos and stuff, for like the core tour, Panasonic Shockwave core tour, I was the one building a lot of those jumps most of the time. I started going as just someone doing the competitions, but then I made friends with the event planners and got to, talking with them because we were jumping on a lot of their BMX jumps that they had. And it's like, well, if we did this or whatever, this might be easier. We're hitting your mega ramp, but we could also hit these jumps too. That would be kind of cool. And then, and I was like, and I have, like 10,000 hours on a skid steer. So if you ever need any help doing this at the next weekend that's coming, and like, oh, sure. So it turned into me just showing up to do demos, to me showing up like a couple days early to help move dirt, to me showing up like a week early to actually run the full front loader and skid steer and have dirt deliveries and get everything measured and actually built. Then that turned into me going on the road with them as well, bringing the presence of mountain boarding with me and doing the full tours of like organizing the trucks and the people and then doing announcing for them and competing. Um, so it's like there'd be times where I'd show up like a week and a half early. I'd just driven across the country for them with trucks full of gear, would get everything unloaded, would manage the on ground crew, would get everything built, would figure out where landings need to go, would have dirt delivered, would shape the dirt, would move everything around, get all the banners set up, get everyone ready to go, and then would announce for certain parts of the tour, and then would actually compete, and then would tear it all down, pack it all in a truck, and drive it to the next spot, just so that I was still, in the loop with what was going on action sports wise, which was great because those were some of the best tours that I was on, in
Yeah.
that decade, getting to hang out and ride with, all of the greatest people in their disciplines, which was pretty awesome. Because then you're part of the off-site shenanigans that was happening in those days as well too.
How much though? I talked about knees and doing these demos. As an elder statesman now of the sport, how much would you have preferred to have had a modern airbag for those demos? When you're doing it day in, day out, surely the ease to injure yourself, or not the
You mean
ease, but the
you mean to land on?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like landing on airbags, um, on a mountain board at least, unless you're trying to like perfect a trick. I mean, Leon and Coney and I used to go to Woodward West, uh, you know, with the Red Bull hookup and practice there. In fact, uh, Travis Pastrana's wife, Lindsay, I mean, she was like 10 or 11 years old. We'd see her there. And uh, um, Ryan Scheckler, I remember when he was like 9 years old when he would be riding at our events with us. But would they be there like practicing? But we would go practice in the foam pit there and then the resi ramp, right? And the foam pit was like one thing to like, rotate around and land in. But it's a weird feeling to be, strapped in to your board and then prepare for your landing and then not actually have that moment of like
yeah,
impact. The resi ramp is fine, but I find like the airbags to land in is like somewhere in between, the resi
yeah.
and the
I mean,
foam
I
pit,
suppose,
depending on how they are.
yeah, I
It
suppose
also
that.
just doesn't look as cool either for like a demo to not like really land in right away in, right?
Yeah, yeah. I suppose if if you're trying to push that it's a dirt based sport, you kind of
Yeah.
need to be on the dirt, I suppose.
Well,
Um,
not just the dirt, but like something that shows that you're actually landing
mm,
and riding away and like completing the process, right?
yeah.
Otherwise, it
Oh,
feels like you're just watching
I was
practice.
meaning one of the more landing bait that they're slightly harder, but a lot of the guys now use them for
Oh,
training, don't they?
yeah, the
Not
resi
not the
ramp.
flat bags. the landing bags. Just I know the guys in Australia use a setup that
Yeah, yeah,
has a
the it's
ride out, but yeah,
yeah,
you're right. It's not
the
quite
resi
a
ramp.
resi ramp, but I think they can put a resi layer over the top should they want. Uh,
Yeah, like the ones on like, Boom Boom Hook Jam and the Travis Pastrana's um
yeah,
tours. Yeah,
yeah,
it's got the thick layer of resi on top of
yeah.
basically like an airbag.
Uh,
But you don't sink down into it. It's
no,
bouncy, but you can definitely ride away from it. Yeah. Yeah, those are great, especially when you're going over and over again. That would have been awesome to have something like that because our landing ramp for the most part for the longest time was a solid steel construction foldable ramp off of the back of the truck with, you know, half-inch plywood and masonite screwed into it.
I bet it
Thing
would have
weighed a
sounded good
thing
though.
thing weighed a ton. It sounded awesome when you hit it, but man, you might as well have been landing on the concrete, which is which was nice when our demos, like when I did the 2003 Big Air competition in Boulder, the one that was for the Guinness Book of World Records, and that was to grass, which was great. I had set the world record on my or on one of my attempts as like 17 feet 4 inches or something like that. And then no one was hitting that, and I wanted to go again to see if I could get any higher. And because this was going to be like the official record for however long it was going to stand for, and so I tried again and just hucked myself off that roller with everything that I had, and was able to launch like straight up in the air, just barely clipped the ribbon. If I would have kept my board flat, I would have soared over it by like another foot.
Hmm.
But I wasn't flat enough. I had launched, but my board stayed more. My front leg was way high, my back leg was too low. I didn't go flat over it like I did before, and I was like super out of control in the air, and I came straight down to the bottom of the landing ramp. I didn't even hit the landing ramp. I overshot it as well. And so I landed right at the bottom of the ramp and the ground. And had that been in any other parking lot demo that we had done, I would have landed straight to the concrete. But I landed straight to the grass,
Yeah,
basically, like right at the lip of the landing to the grass. And it knocked my shoulder out, dislocated this shoulder, which I had done a million times, and knocked me out. And I didn't really have any say in it because I was so out of it, but I ended up getting put into an ambulance and sent to the Boulder hospital to get x-rayed and checked out and all that kind of stuff, which ended up costing a ton of money because at that point, apparently my contract with MBS expired that day and I didn't know, I didn't realize it. And so I hadn't signed a new contract. And so the current owner at the time was like, "Well, you weren't under contract, so this isn't covered." And that turned into a whole thing where it's like I had to pay all those medical expenses on my own. And it jacked up my arm so bad. I was also working with the Dan band, Dan Finnerty and the Dan band at the time, and their bass player Einar Peterson was getting ready to go tour with Kelly Clarkson, and so he couldn't do one of our Vegas stops, and I was going to play bass instead because I've been playing bass forever,
yeah,
and so I was filling in for him at a Vegas show after that event, and my arm was in a sling, and I'm like on Vicodin because I was just jacked up. I'd separated ribs. I had
yeah.
a concussion. My arm had popped out, and so I show up to the rehearsal. My arm's in a sling, and I'm like trying to play, and I'm like out of it. And I'm like, don't worry, I'll be fine for the show when we finally get to Vegas. But I was still in a sling all the way up until we were playing the actual show. I'd taken it out just so that I sat down on the edge of a speaker so that I could play. But even then, it was just like I was struggling. It hurt so bad. Needless to say, that was the last time that I filled in for that band. But um, yeah, so landing on grass was always nice, but we didn't always have that luxury. Plenty of times our ramps were just in a random parking lot
Yeah.
on the concrete, and so you just had to stick it, and you had to be able to ride away. Um, but fun nonetheless, right? You're just out there with your boys, and you're touring around, and you're in the van or the truck, and you're driving around, and you're having a good time. You know, you wake up in a different city every night with like your best friends, right? And you're all
Yeah.
doing the thing that you love to do, which is mountain board. And anywhere in between while you're driving, you're like looking for things to hit. So we had our favorite spots as we drove across the country. That would be like, oh yeah, we're on the 80, freeway, the interstate, and we're heading east. And if you drive through, uh, I think it's like Iowa. If you're in Iowa on the 80, exit 180, heading east is a like a rest stop.
Hmm.
We called it 8180. And so you exit and you go and it takes you to the top of this hill where like the bathrooms and the vending machines are, whatever. And for whatever reason, the way that they built that rest stop on the top of this hill off the 80, it's like rolling green hills. There's like these whoops built into the side of the mountain, and they're all grass covered. So no matter what tour we are on, I was looking at the map. This is before Google Maps, right? Like
Hmm.
I would just have like printed map quests out or, Thomas guide and stuff like that. And I'd be like, hey, we're driving through Iowa because we're going to go do a competition in Iowa at the ski resort. And we know we're going to drive past this rest stop again. So I would always make sure that we would hit these certain spots where we knew there was like a cool riding spot. And that was one of them. And to this day, when I drive cross country, if I'm in that area, I always stop off at that spot because all those little rollers are still there and they're still grass covered. And it's a fun little spot to just like hop on your board and just like get a couple of whoops in and
Yeah.
then hike back up. You got the bathrooms, the vending machines, they got some shade, they got picnic tables and stuff like that. But we would find things like that, like as a team driving around, which was pretty cool. Plus all the other random antics that you'd get into with just, a van full of crazy mountain boarders driving across country. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of fun non-mountain boarding things that would happen on those mountain boarding tours that to this day are like some of the most fun I've ever had.
I bet. I bet. I mean, having done not as many, but a fair share back in the day. I remember them all with such like incredible for each for their own. Even the ones that were the rubbish. I mean, I don't. You obviously never seem to have this problem because you had like what's the word, maybe a more professional setup that was made for doing numerous shows in numerous cities night after night after night. Um, but we'd quite often do, I say quite often, we'd do events at like country fairs and stuff like that,
Hmm.
where we turn up and they'd be like, I remember one we turned up to, and we were like, oh yeah, you'll go there. They've already imported a load of dirt and shaped it up, ready for you guys just to go and do your thing. And obviously we're like, okay. So then it was literally like a truck had come in, dumped its load in one long line, and somebody had like driven a car over it a few times to make it a bit flatter. So we're like, what the fuck? It's flat all around it. It's just like
Yeah,
one giant tabletop of dirt, but
yeah,
no kicker, no running, no nothing. What
yeah. Here's your dirt border.
yeah. Just
Yeah,
eat it.
make it work. There
Yeah.
was a Coney and I we did Coney and I have been on a lot of random adventures. Coney and I represented the US for a like X Games in South Korea in I think it was in 2003 or 2004. I can't, so we flew out there and Coney and I were treated like rock stars like as soon as we landed because apparently the son-in-law of the CEO of LG was wanting to buy a bunch of mountain boards and set up like a rental shop at one of the local ski resorts or whatever. So
Yeah.
we went out there to be the mountain board. There was rollerbladers and BMX guys and skateboarders, all these action sports guys. It was supposed to be at this massive. Well, it was at this massive arena where they built out all of these ramps, half pipes, and rollers and kickers and rails and all kinds of stuff. They built this massive, like, action sports arena for all of us to come and compete at. And so we get out there and, they're parading us around in limos and taking us to clubs and meeting all these people, going to the ski resort to look at the mountain, um, put us up in nice places. We're eating great food, all in preparation to like show off like how cool mountain boarding was and then to get ready to go mountain board at this event. So we weren't staying with all the rest of the athletes that had been brought in from around the world to to compete at this thing. Well, the first day we're allowed to go to the arena to like practice. The pictures we've been shown looked pretty cool, but when we got there up close, it was the jankiest, most dangerous setup I have ever seen in my life. It was like a facade of like if you were going to shoot a movie and in the
Yeah.
background you wanted to look like there was an actual competitive looking action sports arena, that would have been fine. But up close, you'd see that it was like ghetto scaffolding with no supports, and then like a metal scaffold tower, and then just like wood laid off of it at an angle for the ramps,
Yeah.
like no support, and things that were over, like nothing was actually smooth to ride on. So we had the easiest time because we had mountain board wheels, but the skaters couldn't ride half the stuff. Neither could the rollerbladers. And the guys on bikes, the way they landed, it was like too much pressure. They were like bending and breaking things. So that first day to go there to figure out like what it was going to look like to ride on this thing, uh, we all kind of like revolted at the first, and we're like, dude, we can't. You guys got to fix this, and this. And they were like, okay, okay. So we see a bunch of workers going and planning, and so we're like, we're going to come back the next day. This is like 3 days before the supposed event. The next day we show up, and they had done everything that we said. They were still working on other parts of it. Most of it, 90% of it was still unrideable. Like it looked cool, but it was 100% unrideable. Like
Yeah.
across the board, it was just ghetto, sketchy. Also, we were realizing that they hadn't spent any of the money that they said they were on building this like world-class event facility, and it was going to get packed out or whatever. And so a lot of the riders were like, well, we haven't been paid, or we don't even know that we're going to get paid to ride, because they were supposed to be, whether you won or not, there was like an upfront payment for everybody to ride in this thing, and then there'd be cash prizes if you won. But we were basically getting paid to put on this competition.
Hmm.
And we're like, we haven't seen any money yet. Like the other riders, like we haven't seen any money yet, because they weren't getting treated like the way Coney and I were, because we were there for that, but we were also there to be paraded around to build up
For the
mountain
owner of
boarding.
LG.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we were getting a completely different treatment that the other riders and disciplines, like the skaters, BMX and rollerblader guys, they weren't getting the treatment we were getting. So Coney and I were having a blast, but as the group of athletes at that spot at the event, it was like, dude, this is crazy. And so all the riders together, we kind of revolted and said, like, well, we're not going to ride until you can pay us or prove to us that there's going to be money for this, or that there is money for this. And so the workers that were there were kind of getting a little nervous. And then these other guys, like these suits, these South Korean suits, show up, and they're like just like hardcore, imagine, like, I don't know, like the mafia, right? Like showing up, and they gather us all underneath one of the big ramp, and they're not really talking or anything like that. But this guy comes out, this big, the biggest South Korean I've ever seen, in a suit with a giant briefcase, and he comes up, and he basically opens it up for us, and it's full of cash. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars in USD, but this briefcase is just full of cash. And he just shows it to all of us, and then locks it. It's like handcuffed to his wrist. And then he gets ushered away, and then basically like, you will all ride. We have the cash. You are here. People are coming. Like, you cannot say that you will not ride. Like, all this stuff. It was just like, what is going on?
If you're not careful, we're going to take to the North Island and we're going to leave you
Yeah,
all there.
yeah, yeah. It's just like, what is happening, dude? They just brought out this briefcase full of cash to prove to us that they're going to pay us. And now they're getting like semi-threatening. This is insane. So we're like, all right, well, that's crazy. Well, after that happened, we told our handler that that had happened. They come and pick us up from that spot and take us to some other place. And they don't say anything. The next day was supposed to be, the ramps are actually done. We can do our actual full practice. And then the next day was going to be the event. After that happened, they ushered us away from that, Coney and I, and take us to restaurants and clubs and, whatever. They're just like parading us around. And it's not until that night that they're like, yeah, so tomorrow we're going to go up to the ski resort and we're going to look at this place again. And you're going to talk to these other people about mountain boarding and where a course could go. We're like, well, don't we need to go back? Tomorrow's our big practice day. The ramps are finally going to be done, right? And they're like, don't worry about that. Things will work out. It turns out that the whole thing had fallen apart. All the other athletes that were there, it was just like, all right, so this, I don't know, something had happened. We didn't get taken back until the day of the actual event. And when we were there, nothing really had changed. We got brought in. I got pictures of Coney and I. We have our like, athlete badges. We're at the event. There's no one in the stands. There's no one there. They have like TV cameras and stuff, so they're like filming some of the things. We get brought in. We go to this one ramp that's like now semi done. It was like not even as tall as our normal rolling ramps.
Uh-huh.
One rolling ramp, one jump over a table, and one landing. We get dropped off. They're like, you're both going to do 2 jumps each, and then you're going to get back in the car and we're going. And so we go and we do our 2 jumps. There's no one in the stands. This is like the big, massive event day. All the other riders are there. We do our thing. They get some shots of us. We get ushered out, put back into the car, and driven away from the event. The arena was empty. It's like a 50,000 person arena, and we're like in the middle, like on the football field looking thing, right?
Yeah.
There's no one there except like media people that are just like getting shots. And then that was it. We left. And we had another like couple days in Korea, and then Coney and I flew home. It was so random, dude. It was so crazy. But it was another one of those things where it's like, people were trying to like milk action sports in other places, but weren't quite ready for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, those kind of things, like those random things, were just always fun. Like you're just out in the middle of nowhere with your buddy,
That's
And
that's the sprinkling of seasoning on life, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Every time we like in New York, after one of the big events, there's probably like 150 of us all in different cabs heading back to the hotel. Um, you know, skaters, BMX, inline, mountain boarders, and all spread out through different cabs, all in the line from like the pier back to the hotel. And I think I'm in the back of a cab with like Chad Kagi, and our we stop in front of the hotel. Our cab is in the front. There's a bunch of cabs in the back. Everyone's honking at each other. It's New York. It's like 11 o'clock at night. We're getting ready to go back to the hotel to change to go out again or whatever. And our cabbie pulls a gun, not on us. We see him pull it out as he parks before we get a chance to pay him. He throws open his door. He gets out. He's waving around. He's yelling at the other cabbies behind him. We get out of the cab. We're going towards the hotel. He's like chasing all the other people. He's running towards us. So we all start booking it for the opening, like the lobby of the hotel. We all pile in, like, we're all trying to get in. The lobby is already full of all the other athletes and the people who are hanging out with us and everything. It's like a little lobby party going on. I run in, I go, he's got a gun. And everyone like looks what? And it's like, okay, Knepper's doing his whatever. He's joking around. But everyone keeps piling in behind me. Eventually, the cabbie with the gun ends up at the door, the opening of the lobby of the hotel, and he's got the gun in the air. He's running. Everyone's like, oh shit. So people just start running over everyone, running down the hallways, trying to hide behind stuff. Everybody's yelling. It's insane. Eventually, he just takes off and gets back. We don't know why he was upset, who he was upset with, what was going on. All we know is that our cabbie got out, got a little revolver, and was just like waving around, yelling at everybody. And then he left, and it was like, all right, well, that happened. And then, we all hung out or went out for the night or whatever. It was just like, there was just always something random going on when you have that many people who are all doing kind of like the same thing that you're doing, and you're on tour together, and you're going to wake up in a different city like in 2 days and do it all over again in a different place. And it just, it was just part of like being on the road. There was always something random going on,
Oh,
which was great.
living the best life. Living
Living the
the
best life. Yeah. Trying
best
not to die.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I have, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I've got another sort of memory, and I'm pretty sure that there was a time when you'd have been the voice or of mountain boarding, like you say, with your demos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But was there not a section that was hosted by multiple people uh, that was just all you?
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
for
I did
the
that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the border crosses in Snowmass, there was a company, like a film company that was basically like producing and shooting kind of like the whole thing, that they would, it would get televised. They'd buy airtime and put it on there. And so I would compete, as a writer in the border cross. Um, but I'd also be doing like uh with like Dan Dorkin and PT and those guys who are doing on mic stuff. I would do on mic stuff as well too, announcing, and I'd be the guy on camera, interviewing writers as they cross the finish line as well and doing stuff like that. But then and that was just me. That was, me as Josh Knepper with a helmet on, having ridden, and now I'm also interviewing people, and I'd use a Red Bull can or something as a microphone, whatever. But then the whole show itself, wrapped in its, TV packaged, as like the show, I would invent these other characters like Mike Michelson or Don Donaldson, or Steve Stevenson, and I'd have a wig and polyester shirts and glasses, and I would, it was kind of like a Ron Burgundy type voice or whatever. And so I would be the overall host where we would shoot that all ahead of time, like before the event happened. And then we do a piece at the end where I'd go around the course and snowmass and talk about, rocks and dirt and hills and gravity and all this stuff that made nonsense. And that was the character that would actually, uh, you know, overall host the whole thing. And that was me too. And so those were fun to do. And then after that was all shot, they would edit all that together. And then I would either do it from my home studio or I'd fly to Colorado to get into a sound booth. And then I would do the voiceover commentating for the piece. So
This,
because then
this is
they'd have here's our
Inception before Inception was a thing.
yeah, they're like, here's our edited show, and here's the writers. And I'm like, yeah, I know all these writers, and I was there, so I know the outcome. And so I could give my because one of the things that's hard to do with these races is to actually do real exciting um play-by-play commentary while it's happening because it's always been hard to have the perfect vantage point at one of the races where you can actually see all
Mhm.
four guys in the border cross at the same time,
Yeah.
turn for turn, hit for hit from top to bottom, right? Which is why we would usually have multiple guys, someone at the top of the microphone calling out what they see, someone midway down calling out what they see, and then
Yeah.
someone at the bottom. Well, that doesn't really work for what they wanted to do for like a deliverable piece to watch on television, right? So after it was edited, I would do commentary and they would record my voice as if I was there calling out the whole thing because I could see everything from top to bottom in the edit. And so I would do that as well. So by the time the piece was done, the show host was a character I made up. The other host who was interviewing people on the ground was me, and then the on-air commentating was also me, and that was all done later. Um, those were fun to do. Yeah,
Like
I
verbally
like those things.
cutting to yourself. Like, oh, we're going
Yes,
to
I would.
Don
Yeah, yeah,
Donaldson in
I
the
would.
field right
I would.
now.
Yeah, I exactly. I would throw to myself as a different character. Yeah, even in the commentating like that, I would record like a month later in the booth. I'd be go, oh yeah, and then so that completed, heat three, with these riders, whatever. Let's go to Josh Knepper at the bottom, who's about ready to talk with whoever, and then it would go to me, and then I'd be talking with somebody,
The
and then
most
me.
handsome host in the world, Josh
Yeah,
Knepper.
yeah, exactly. And then me, as me, would interview somebody, and I knew that it was going to have to be like a commercial break or something like that. And I go, all right. And so after this quick commercial, we'll be right back. Let's go back to our host, and we'll see you at the next heat. And then it would cut to like Mike Michelson, which was me, and then I'd thank myself. And it would cut to like a Vidal Sassoon commercial or something like that, and then it would start all over again. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it
Amazing.
was fun. Yeah.
So now let's flash forward a little bit in time here, Josh, if that's okay. Let's keep
Yeah.
the flow going as such. Um, you mentioned you moved to the big move to Canada and
Yeah.
got your residency there after a few years. Um,
Yeah. My residency. And now, even 2.5, 3 months ago, I got my citizenship.
wow.
Yeah. So
Congratulations.
now my whole family's dual after all these years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that
Yeah.
front.
Thanks.
You now get to look in. Oh, no, I'm gonna stop that I was about to say there. But yeah, you mentioned a brief return in 2019,
Yep.
but we're now in 2026, believe it or not.
I
Um,
know.
and you're here on the podcast for a very good reason. And I happen to obviously know that you will be present at the Dirty 30, which is happening in less than a week's time. Less than a week's time. Well, no, it'd be
Yep.
happening right now as we're recording, but by the time I get this out, it will be less than a week's time.
Yeah,
At Cedar
yeah. Yeah, I
Ledge.
fly out in like 4 days
Oh
from
man.
now, from today. Yeah.
10 minutes on this one here.
Okay.
Uh, uh, so so yeah, tell us what's special about this Dirty 30 and how come you're you're going to be present at riding or
No, I'm not going to be riding on this one. Well, see, I wanted to go out to South Africa to go, watch um and be there for that. Couldn't get that one to work out. I had been talking with PT for a while about uh the significance and importance of this Dirty 30, the 30th anniversary of mountain board competitions in the States. Um, and I work in the film industry, which he knows. So he had a lot of questions about like, what could we do to like do something special for this, whatever. And that turned into me going like, you know what, I'll go out there and I'll do what I can to film like as much as I can of it for you so that we can put together, something cool for the event.
Mhm.
And so that's what I'm doing. I'm bringing one of my film buddies out with me, Levi Allen. We're flying out on the 8th. And then we got a little Sprinter conversion van with everything in it. And we're going to roll up with all of our film gear and get all the cool shots. Hopefully the weather stays nice. And yeah, we're going to get interviews and course shots and, all of the fun after race antics and all that kind of stuff. And
The return of Don Donaldson?
the return of Don Donaldson. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, we'll see which things. I'll probably end up doing some and on camera stuff, but going to be mainly shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to go out there and get as much filmed as possible and get that into can so we can put together yeah, just like a nice piece
Well,
that to commemorate the Dirty 30.
on behalf of the community that will be watching that, um, uh, I'm stoked. I cannot wait to see, a fully edited sort of ode to American mountain boarding.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been a while since we've had anything
It's been a
of
while
substance.
and it's been over 20 years since I've been to that course
Wow.
in Canton. And for some of those guys, I mean, I haven't seen PT in person in decades. I see Leon all the time. I see a Coney, more than not, and some of the other guys. But I haven't seen, like Curtis Kelly or Carnage or those guys out there in since probably 2004, maybe even five. No, probably 2003 or four was the last time. So it's been a while. Um, so yeah, it'll be fun. Plus all the new riders, like that's the coolest thing about this sport is, and with the content you guys put out, like I still consider myself as a mountain boarder. I mean, I still have my boards. I ride around town here by myself, but I'm pretty much the only mountain boarder in this whole area. And
Yeah.
so, if I see a cool thing to hit, I do that. And I still snowboard every winter, but yeah, the mountain boards, I still have a massive fleet of them. Um, and so to see new riders that I don't recognize who are like passionate about it and are competing and riding and doing demos and stuff like that, like it's really cool to see like over the last 2 decades,
Yeah.
all the new people that continue to ride is really awesome. And so to be able to go to an event as well now and to see people excited about it who are actually going to be racing and doing that kind of stuff is be awesome too. Which is why in for the Dirty 30, I'm sponsoring the cash purses across. I'm the one throwing in the money for all the cash purses across all of the disciplines. Um,
Uh,
so that's my contribution. Besides the shooting the videos, is making sure that these these men and women who are going to be ended up on a podium get to walk away with a little cashola. Um,
Nice. Well,
yeah, so
incentive there for the riders.
yeah. It's always fun when you're winning one
Yeah,
little
when there's
chunk of
something to
change.
play for.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, so it's gonna be fun. I can't wait. And in fact, that's why the it's been so hard the last few weeks to nail in this interview is because I've been doing all my gear prep and making sure all my battery still works and getting my cameras prepped and get everything packed so that because originally I was going to drive out there with everything and so it wasn't going to be a problem. I was just going to throw everything in my truck and trailer and head out there. But now I'm flying and so I have to consolidate everything down into
oof.
um, everything. Plus, I have to drive across the border with everything, and so they get a little nervous at the border if they know you have film equipment because they want to make sure you don't have drones now. It's like a
Right.
big deal. It's so stupid. Like you can't bring drones into the states, which is ridiculous. Um, so yeah, we've just been repackaging and repacking everything to make sure that it's all there for this trip. But yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be fun. So I'll be there hanging out that whole weekend. Um, we fly back on Monday, so we'll be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Um, so if anyone's watching it is gonna be there, I guess you're already there if you're watching this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, we'll be around. And
Well,
campfires at night after the races. Everybody wants to hang out, talk about the good old days with an old man.
enjoy a scab or two together, maybe.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
We can compare battle scars.
I was going to say
Um,
I've not ridden that much yet this season, uh,
yeah.
and I don't think I think it might be a year or two since my last hip one. There was a period in my life where these elbow like this from here to here was just constant scab,
Oh yeah, yeah.
365 days a year.
Yeah. Same, same.
Uh, but yeah, the as an elder statesman these days, I try to stay on all four wheels a bit more. Uh,
Yeah, the scabs nonstop here, both my hips constantly scabbed over. And then where you get the little bits of gravel
yeah,
stuck right here to where there was a time to where not only was these parts never healed over completely, but there was always at least one embedded piece of gravel that was always in a state of working itself out. And by the time it came out, there was always a new one in there. Um, and then, in fact, I took my son to a dirt track or a pump track here in Vancouver like 4 years ago to ride on his bike. And I brought the mountain board out with me and there was a bunch of parents there and they're with their kids or whatever. And so I got real cocky. And so I started way up in the parking lot, bombed in, jumped over the bleachers into one of the big berms, use it as a roll-in for speed to hit the pump track, made it all the way around. And I was riding with these kids on bikes and I launched the last one to show off. But the kids were all over the place. And it's like, I'm going to land on them or I'm going to have to try to land off to the side. Well, I ended up bailing into the parking lot off that last whoop. Uh, no pads, no helmet, no nothing. Wasn't even planning on riding. Just had the board in the back. Land, back foot comes out. My hand hits the ground. Board flips around, smacks. I ended up breaking my wrist.
oh no.
And I'm on a TV show at the time. I was shooting kung fu for the WB. And so when I went in to have it casted, I took the grip off my camera, and I said I have to be able to hold this. So I held a piece of that grip while they made the cast around my grip,
No.
so that for the 4 months or 3 months I was wearing the cast on the show, I could still work, and I had to made it all black so that it wouldn't stand out. And then I didn't tell anybody at work
Amazing.
so that and eventually they realized I was wearing a cast
I was go-
but
With the cast on though, it was probably the easiest month's worth of work that you had because you didn't even have to hold it really.
yeah I mean it was all right, but there's pictures of me like in the behind the scenes for that show on the Warner Brothers of me in a full cast
Oh,
shooting all those action scenes. But yeah, you got to be careful because if I get hurt too bad and I can't do that kind of work, they'll just replace you if you can't get your
yeah.
job done. But if you can still do your work, then you're fine, which I did. And then I ended up cutting that cast off myself before it was supposed to come off. Um, I was just tired of having it on, so I stuck my arm in a vise, the cast in a vise, and I got an angle grinder out, and I just cut that thing off.
Classic mountain border.
Yeah, yeah. That like those kind of things were. I remember when Cody Stewart, Chicken Boots, I call him. I've been calling him that forever since he was a kid. He was a on one of our school tours. He was like a punk student at the demos, and he ended up just like riding around with us and riding with us. Like that's how I met Cody Stewart. He was like a high schooler at a school, and he ended up just riding around with us, and then taking him up to Kraka and other places. And now he's still like one of the, you know, raddest mountain boarders that there is.
Yeah, still made
But
finals
he,
in the
but
world
he,
champs.
yeah, but he was always his arm was always in something. Like that's why I bring it up. Like he was always hurting that same arm and wrist.
Right.
And I remember there was years where I don't ever remember seeing him not in some sort of a cast or a brace or something like that. He was always in something, getting, but a lot of us were. Very few people that, would get hippers or like cuts and stuff, but like, guys like Leon Robbins, I remember I'd spend forever riding with him and he never seemed to be hurt. He was just always perfect. He
Yeah.
was just always fine. He's like, yeah, just don't wreck and you'll be fine. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Words of wisdom.
He's
Well,
like, just
absolute
get
words.
get good, man. Like, but yeah. So that's why will probably not be riding at the Dirty 30. One, I want to make sure that I can actually hold the camera and get the
Yeah.
shots that are needed and get that um and be able to like give back to the community in that way to be able to capture some cool footage,
Yeah.
put together a cool edit, to be able to get the word out for, North American events that are going on, and not just the ones that Dirt Heads and PT are putting on, but all the events that happen here in the States or there. I mean, I'm in Canada, but and because like Jason, like when Jason Lee first offered me a spot on the pro team, uh, in 26 years ago, that completely changed like the course of my life. And
Yeah.
some of my best friends are all from that Mountboard community, even to this day. And all those stories of being on the road and touring, and shooting the Down and Dirty series and all those things, were really like some of the coolest times that I have ever had doing anything.
Yeah.
And so to be able to go out and shoot some footage of this event, is more of like a, yeah, that like it's it's the it's the Dirty 30. So it's, the 30 years of this kind of thing happening in North America, even though it's only 27 years of riding for me. It's still one of the things that I just wanted to come out and offer that and do that. So because PT is not paying me to do any of this,
Yeah.
I'm just offering that up as
It,
a way
it,
to, as just like here's my thank you to the Mount Board community for all the
yeah.
things that like Jason Lee did for me over the years, and MBS in general, and just what mountain boarding has given me. This is my little, I can carve out some time and kind of give back in this way, which, yeah, I'm looking forward to.
Oh man, that's nice. And similarly over here, we've put these live broadcasts out for the UK champs over the last few years, and that there the unsung hero there is an ex-British champion mountain boarder who just happens to do outdoor broadcasting for the BBC,
Hmm.
and it's like, well, I'm not going to race anymore, but I'll come and film it, and I'll bring along all my pals who are all going to take time off of their work, and we'll all come and volunteer and get it out just as a way of, well, it's why we do it, why I do this, it's paying your
Yeah.
dues, isn't it? How can you, when you go through and forge a family, there's a kind of almost like a gratitude to your own family and friends, isn't there, for going
Yeah.
through these things together. That it's a hard one when you've been in it so deep that you kind of feel that, still feel
Yeah,
those family ties and
for sure. Because there's still a lot of people who are really into mountboarding, and mountboarding has had so many, I wouldn't say opportun well, yeah, opportunities, but that there have been multiple times in history, especially in the last 30 years, where it seemed like, oh, this is going to be it. Mountboarding's now going to be in the X Games, or it's going to be, it's going to be something bigger. And the hype around it was like, yep, this is going to happen. And then in, a couple years, this bigger thing is like it. We always seemed like we were right on the edge of like, okay, now it's going to be this thing.
yeah,
Um, and a lot of times it always came down to, well, there wasn't enough people who could ride at that level, um, in order to fill,
yeah,
the need in order for it to become something bigger, which I guess it's fine. Like it was still kind of in its infancy back then, but to see that there's still people who are like, they're not, it's not that they don't care that it's not involved in those things, but that's not like the main driving force. They just do it because they love it. And
exactly.
so if there's still people out there who just love to mount board
Mhm.
and that community, um, then that's awesome. And so that's why I'm like, yeah, I want to come out and help document, this event and maybe
Ah,
other events in the future, and take the things that I have access to, and my connections and knowledge in the film industry now. I mean, because if I'm not doing this, I'm on a soundstage, shooting a TV show or a movie full
uh-huh.
time. That's what I do as a cinematographer and a camera operator. So, most of my time is spent with actors and movie sets. Um, and so I want to take some of those things that I do and meld that in with the mountain board world now.
Yeah.
Especially as I'm older, I'm
And can't
48,
you get
man. I'm
some of these stars? Like I remember Owen Wilson doing with Eric Coston and the cruise,
yeah,
doing the changeover stair set
yeah,
nose
yeah,
blunt
yeah.
down
The
the,
cowboy switch for the skating. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it. Sure, surely there's got to be some connection. You need to work harder on some of these actors and convince them that they want to do this again.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm stoked that there's still people stoked on mountboarding, and that people are still riding because it's fun. It's awesome. Um, and yeah, maybe something will happen in the future where the suits in charge will be aged out and the new generation of people in charge of programming and things like that will throw mountain boarding a chance again at
Yeah,
uh at something bigger. But until then, it's going to take all of us to be united in a way that makes our uh competition circuit around the world as cohesive as possible,
yeah,
so that everything makes sense across the board. Because that kind of thing, is needed. And I think that that is what is happening, more so than it was even back in the day,
mm,
because I know that's an important part of having some sort of an established system that makes something bigger make sense, right?
yeah,
Like you need to be able to have your local competitions where those placings and those seats and those points make sense as you get into something that is bigger, like a world championship that gets, into something else, to where there's a definite defined, these are the people who are the best at the sport in these categories.
mhm,
And so we can take them from around the world and put them into this bigger
yeah,
thing, whether it's an X Games type thing or something else, to be like, all right, yeah, these are the best of the best. This is the top people from around the world, and they've proven it through this
Yeah,
system. And so
yeah,
now they can be on this bigger thing. So it's not like that can't happen, but yeah, I think the more that we all come together and make it all as cohesive as possible. So that's another reason why it's like, yeah, I want to make sure that the Dirty 30 gets covered properly as well
yeah.
too. Because North America was massive for a long time, and everyone outside was like, oh man, the states are doing so many big things, and we were just like, man, we were flying by the seat of our pants trying to make it work. And I'm sure it seemed a lot bigger and more glamorous than it was across the pond than it actually was here. And then everywhere outside of North America for a long time actually became this bigger thing than what was even happening in the States. It was like you guys are trying to catch up to what you thought we were doing here.
I think that's pretty much
Yeah,
a big part of it, massively
yeah.
so.
And then everyone outside the States surpassed everything that was happening, um, with like the amount of writers and the amount of events and all that kind of stuff. And so I think with this, with the Dirty 30 and other competitions, like, yeah, well, this is where that started, and we're trying to bring more of that back here, right? Bigger events that are happening here, to show that this is where it originated, and there's still a lot of life left in the mountboard community,
Yeah,
race wise and event wise in the States, that is yet to come. So I'm excited about that as well too, because those are events now that it's easier for me to take time off to get to
yeah.
than flying outside the country. So yeah,
Unfortunately, I won't be at the Dirty 30. This one is just no way of making it happen this year. It's been a bit of an up and down roller coaster ride, this one. Um, but I have heard rumblings of talks about maybe a return to Moab in the not too distant future, which
nice. Yeah, I love
having
Moab.
having been there once, like now, obviously it's going to beckon me, but knowing that there is also a future at Cedar Ledge, that this is not just a one-off, is a massive relief to me, to the fact
Yeah,
that there are going to be more opportunities to go and ride these iconic spots that have helped spawn the mountain boarding that we know in the modern world, and still shape and create there, is just incredible. And to have you
yeah.
document that this year is super exciting. Like I say, I mean, I am I'm not the only geek in mountain boarding. There are plenty of us, and I know that the people who won't be there will be, just chomping at the bit to see what's happened, and yeah, to see it. Everybody hawks the social media these days. I think that's a big part of this, our community feeling a lot closer because the world's so much smaller with social media now.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, the thought of a slightly longer format, um, something to get a little, time to sit down with a cup of tea and or coffee or whatever your drink of choice is, and to kick back and relax rather than just be scrolling is
hmm
an absolute, I'm very excited for it. Very
yeah,
excited.
yeah. Me too. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that if we would have had access to what we have now back then, things might have been a little different from outboarding. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't have social media. We didn't have smartphones. I mean,
No.
we were all sponsored by Nokia, and we had those, they weren't even flip phones. They were just these tiny little, you couldn't even afford to send text messages on them.
Yeah.
It was like you had it to make a phone call to do something, but like we weren't, we were filming our own stuff, but there wasn't really an outlet for it to come out. Like you'd see
Yeah.
one compilation video at the end of the year, but nothing like as it was happening, right? So
Well, yeah, exactly. It'd probably still been 8 millimeter, or at best like a digital, what they digital tapes kind of
yeah, mini
camcorder.
DV. We were shooting
Yeah.
mini DV. And then Panasonic had some little digital cameras that they came out with, that they used me, a picture of me on a quarter pipe, like on all the packaging for those cameras. They have the picture of the camera on the box with the screen flipped out, and then the image on the screen of like this is what the camera's shooting was me, like in
Right.
the in on a massive like indie grab on
Yeah.
a quarter pipe. Um, and and so, there were things that were getting out there, um, but it wasn't like how social media is today. Leon Robbins and I did a Snapple commercial in New York. And then it was the Panasonic stuff where my picture was used on big billboards and banners and all the packaging for the cameras. There were little things here and there where like, oh, there's mountboarding. And it like I was saying before, it was starting to build up to like, oh, this is gonna get bigger. This is getting bigger. And then it never really did get bigger the way we thought.
Yeah.
But there also wasn't like that daily social media post of like, look at what mountboarding is doing and looking at all the stuff
Yeah.
that we're doing. Like we didn't have that boost with it, or the platform that had already been built in like the skating and the BMX circuit, where there was already full-time photographers and videographers and established larger magazines that were constantly pumping that stuff out. Like we
Yeah.
were trying with the mountain board mags, but it wasn't quite the same. Um, Most of them were, the cover was in color, but then the inside it was like, black and white newsprint.
Like
So
fanzine or
yeah, more like fanzine stuff with a lot of cool stories from the road, but you weren't getting like what the rest of the action sports community was getting, with like a constant feed of like what was actually happening at the
yeah.
time. So, um, but now like that's easier to get. So there's more people putting more stuff out there, which is cool because I like seeing all the new riders, and all the footage from the competitions and stuff like that, which is great.
Oh, excellent. Well, look, man, I think we're gonna be coming on to wrapping this up if that's cool with you.
Yeah, sounds good, man. It's
Um,
been great.
Thank you so much for joining me this evening and to you guys, whatever time you're listening. Hopefully we'll get this out in the nick of time for everybody who's traveling to Cedar Ledge for the Dirty 30. Um, yeah, we'll be on your phones whilst you're sitting on a van or in a coach or in a plane or whatever. But yeah, hopefully it'll be going off an absolute stonking event. Um, yeah,
I got
thank you.
I got something to show you.
Oh, a little last minute treat. Way, it's still in perfect packaging.
Yeah.
Oh man.
We just moved into this house and I've been unpacking, and I finally found this. I still got I got a few of these, but this is the unpackaged Razor Tech Deck.
Oh, I've got a red and a grey razor. Um, and a couple of earth boards. So in one of the boxes over here that I did have in the background there. And I think there's even a little grind rail uh, as well for them that I've got. But none in pristine packaging. Jeez.
Yeah, when those came out, I know we're ending, but like that was just another one of the things where it's like, oh yeah, these are like this is an official tech deck for mountain boarding. Like, this is gonna blow up.
Yeah.
We're gonna be properly paid rock star action sports athletes through mountain boarding now, and
Yeah.
this is what we're gonna do. Um, so obviously that part didn't happen, but the tactics were cool.
The techniques were cool. And there was a Disney film made. That's it.
Yeah. A lot of those I missed out on because I was doing the other tours, including that Elements commercial. I was supposed to fly to New Zealand to do that, but then I got stuck at the airport in New York because it was 9/11.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
Jeez.
that's another story for another time.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for spending the time here with us for this episode, Josh. Um, I, I I wish you all the best in the world, my friend.
Yeah, thanks,
It's
man.
been
This is
ace
great.
hanging out with you. I can't wait to see what comes from the Dirty 30, and on behalf of the community, uh, I can't thank you enough for your services to mountain boarding over the years past and into the now future.
Awesome.
It's awesome. I really appreciate
I'll
it.
be putting out daily stuff probably on my Instagram or something. Um, as we do this whole trip, like the whole flight out there and the whole thing, I'll just be shooting a little behind the scenes with my phone as well and putting stuff out
Oh, amazing. Don't forget to tag us in any that I can help push out there.
for sure.
So, yeah, excellent. Well, this has been The Dirt and hanging out with Josh Knepper.